Okay. We're in Naimer Vav. Actually, step by step, more and more fascinating. But what we said, when we were talking about the Chet of Adam Harishon, what was that? And which is, of course, probably the most important question in history. And what he explained to us so far, as much as we have a hasaga in, is that the Ra took a left turn here. The Ra went through a paradigm shift and became something different than it was originally intended to be by Hashem, where it was meant to be, there was Ra in the world. It was meant to be a Nisayan, like the Nachash. Nachash was there. Adam Rishon didn't create the Nachash. The Nachash was there, but it was meant to be a Nisayan. We didn't explain why Adam needed a Nisayan. What was the purpose of this Nisayan? But it was a Nisayan. But what happened here is that Adam Rishon, with the Etiyah Shel Nachash, with the Eitzah of the Nachash and Chava, said that we can upgrade ourselves to a place of not an end user, but a place where the Toiv Ra is still separate, and it's a Metzius. So instead of being down here, where it's already all pre-digested and chewed for us, so you're only getting Tov, and you have Raz and Nisayan for some reason, what's happening here is that you're becoming a part of the struggle. You've ingested the struggle of Tov Ra. Once you ingest the struggle of Tov Ra, so now the klolos are mamela. Struggle, you want struggle. You want to be involved with Tov Ra, struggle for Parnasa. You want to, the world could have been such where we're creating and procreating and recreating and creating a whole world. No. This is going to be a painful procedure. In other words, basically everything, it seems to me, that everything that has to do with that last finishing touch of creation, so which could have been done by a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and you could have been part of the creation. Instead, you became Kelohim, Yodea Toiv Ra. You decided, you chose to become part of the system of bringing things into this world through the spheres into the world of Asiya. Children, so you'll be part of it. I could have done it, Hashem says. Would have been easy. Now, everybody thinks when we talk about this that, well, which way do we want better? Which do we think he made it? So that's not a kasha. I mean, it could be if we would have been Adam Rishon in the same situation, we would have made the same choice. There's a reason why one makes this choice. He wants to be a squirrel. You know, we like this executive position. But then again, we chose that. It was not that original intention.
Responsibilities.
We like it. So you said a couple of days ago, like the most painful thing that a person can go through in a job or in life is where somebody says, I'll make all the decisions. You just enjoy. Everything will be fine for you. I need to know. How much am I paying for that? Don't worry. Everything will be okay. I mean, maybe everything will be okay. It's torture. At least for me, I don't know. It's torture not to be in the control of the Tov Ra, not to be responsible for my own choices. For me, I consider that a treacherous situation. Had I been, so I have no tinus on Adam Rishon.
Isn't that an illusion in that if that was the original kavanah of Kadosh Baruch Hu, so then that would have actually been a more pleasurable state. It's just an illusion that we're losing control or losing some, right? Because otherwise, it wouldn't have been a chet. There's something l'chachila better about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what's better about it, because then there would have been a finished Shechina b'tachtonim. Simple as that. I know, just like, I'm saying, like, if I would want to make for myself, let's just help me with this. If I would want to make for myself a dira be Hawaii, let's go there, and I want to make myself a dira, and here it is, boom, and I hired the guys to manage it, and I hired, and the management guy is saying, "Oh, this is no fun, just to come into this perfect place, Let me better the pipes. Let me decide on which telephone service to get, which Wi-Fi to get, which So, the minute you take achrayus down there, so now you have achrayus. So I understand you're having more fun, and it's a little bit more executive for you. You've gotten a raise, but what about my dira b'tachtonim? Is it going to be as good as if had I just bought the prefab and done it myself? So that's the struggle. It might have been better for Adam, MS, but is it better for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The point in Yonenu is, though, that the struggle ensued. Now, all of a sudden, when we put ourselves in that position, we're in that position. And when we're in that position, the Shechina is not where it was or where it could have been. B'tachtonim. Why? Because you pushed it out. You pushed it out by you making this. You put yourself in an executive. Hayu ka'achad mimenu. Hayu ka'achad mimenu. You've taken upon yourself to be like God. Okay, that's the choice that we had. So it's no longer like a ra that's in the sign. You're dealing with the tov v'ra. You're on that level. So there's kama nafkaminas. That's what we learned on Monday. The nafkamina is that once we have to be mitmatzeh with the ra, so now the ra can become a real metzius. In other words, you could make a bad choice. That the ra is a real metzius. If the ra is a real metzius in our lives, if we choose badly, so then even, this is a chiddush, even if you'll run to toiv, it's not going to undo the ra. In fact, it can even strengthen the ra. Let's just be misponen in this for a second. It means, like the mashal, if you will, of the Chumash is, Adam Arisha and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, oh no, now they're going to do a beeline for the Eitz HaChaim and Chai Lo Olam. Eitz HaChaim was mutter 10 minutes ago. Until you ate from the Eitz Hadas, no problem with the Eitz HaChaim. Now that you eat from the Eitz Hadas, Eitz HaChaim becomes Asur. Not only does it become Asur, but you get evicted from Gan Eden with malachim, with spinning swords, guarding the derech Eitz Chaim to make sure that you don't get into this Eitz Chaim. So I guess the most positive shot, if there is such a thing in this, the positive shot is, well, you were just Geyser Misa in the world, and you just made a situation where you're going to die. Run for the Eitz Chaim, and you get your life back. But this is Reb Tzaddik that's not the Omek Hadavar. It's not just about being mevatel the Gzeres Misa. The Eitz Chaim is nourishing life. Eitz Chaim. It's a nourishment. It's like vitamins. It's a nourishment. Chai Lo Olam. It's a good name for like a pharmaceutical company. Eitz Chaim. V'chai Lo Olam. If you take this Eitz Chaim, you've eaten from the fountain of youth. You'll live forever if you take from this Eitz Chaim. What is it nourishing? It's nourishing, and this is so deep. It's nourishing. It's creating growth, and nourishing whatever I have, which may be good, but it may be bad. So, if it's nourishing what may be good or may be bad, if it's bad, if it's good, so you get more good. But now that you've ingested the bad also, tov v'ra, if you haven't eradicated that, so what you're doing is you're causing that evil bacteria to grow, and you're making the cancer worse. Excuse my 4 metaphors all in one. Meaning, like if you're stimulating growth, that could be a good thing, but it could also be a very bad thing, depending on what makar is. You know, in the world, it's like we have to struggle to understand this because it's so important. But in the world of business, they say, not that I know anything about business, but in the world of business, they say, like, don't throw good after bad. Dahainu, like, if there's a bad deal here, you know, there's a bad building, it's the wrong location, it's got asbestos, whatever it is, it's a bad building. If you're going to throw now $100,000, $1 million, $10 million on it, you're not going to help. You're not changing the location. The one you can change the windows, you can change the doors, you can change the pipes, but you can't change the location. So if it's bad, it's not only you're not helping it with the $100 million. In a sense, you're creating a debt. You're making the situation worse by throwing good after bad. Now, instead of having a bad building worth $10,000, I've got a bad building worth $100 million. So it's not just that I haven't fixed it, but I've actually nourished something that's negative. I struggle with this. I'm not a businessman, but I struggle with this daily in Yonam of tzedakah. I'm a guy by tzedakah. Try to help poor people. You know, you don't want to be an achzer, and you don't want to be an idiot. Like, there has to be some chachma over here. If somebody has fallen into the trap of being of schnorring money, being notel minach tzedakah as a living. It worked out that if I work, I'll make 50 shekel an hour, and if I'll make 500 shekel an hour. It worked it out. Now, it's very difficult to judge this, and it can't be too quick to judge it because they're not all this way and they're not all that way. But we're not talking about a person in trouble. We're talking about a person week after week, month after month, year after year, who's 26 years old and able-bodied. Like, what's going on here? You got to be careful not to judge it. But my point is this: my point is that if you say, well, it's always good to give tzedakah, is it? Or am I now enabling and creating a growth of a bad habit? Very much like a person feels better. An alcoholic feels better with some alcohol, so is the right thing to do to give him some alcohol? But he feels better. Does feel better. Smiling, thank you. Hugs, you're wonderful. Hashem should be mevarech otcha. It's good, but have I done a mitzvah? Have I done an avera? So you have the same gabbai tzedakah with the same money, with the same plea and the same words. But this is a chiluk you have to make. Is it tov or is it ra? Is it like a person who's working hard and trying hard and just something went wrong, fell into hard times, and things didn't work out for them? That's tzedakah. Very, very complex, very complicated. I find, like, the Indian, the part of my life, which is gabbai tzedakah, is so complicated that it's probably the one part of my life which I think always I want to just give up. Because I don't... Which probably, Alibademus makes me into a good gabbai tzedakah, but I struggle with this. It's really the same thing. Now, if you take it on a more esoteric...
That struggle is godlike. That's what we're talking. I mean, that struggle, the good and the bad, of choosing who should get, who shouldn't get, that is the godlike.
Except you're reversing the roles. In other words, in this case, he's the Adam in our mashal. Right. The Ani is the Adam. And the ani better make sure, when he's going to somebody for capital investment, that he's got a good product here. Because otherwise what's happening is, he who is nourishing him is nourishing Ra, not nourishing Tov. I'm sure that if you know physics, it works in physics. If you know biology, it works in biology. I'm sure if you know business, it works in business. And it's a mitzias that if you have this is the mitzias of the Bria, that if you have some Ra there, throwing Tov after the Ra is only going to make the Ra worse. You're watering the weeds.
If Adam Harishon had not ingested the Ra, we wouldn't have gone into Shabbos with the Ra, and there wouldn't be all these Hilchos Shabbos.
That's right. That's for sure. But if he wouldn't have ingested the Ra, more basic, if he wouldn't have ingested this Ra, then any Tov that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would have given him would have just made the Tov better. It's as simple as that. But now that we've got some weeds in the garden, so now, there's a danger of watering the weeds. Comes Reb Tzaddik and he tells us, you want to know what happened with Elisha ben Avuya? Rabbi Akiva watered the weeds. Because, was this a mistake? Hard for me to say. He says it. Because we know that he had a kernel of Ra milachatchila. He had a kernel of Ra already from his bris. There was a shaloi lishma. Ki yadua. His life was a shaloi lishma. His father is at his bris. Chazal tell us his father at his bris said that this one, he's a rich man, he said, this one should be a big Talmud Chacham, I'll support him to be a big Talmud Chacham, so he'll get a lot of cover. He'll get a lot of privileges, he'll get a lot of, it's like the right thing to do. He was giving him a career. So he grew up with that. It wasn't just that his bris. He grew up with this, like, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Huge Talmud Chacham, almost impossible for anybody, even Rabbi Akiva, to discern. Now comes the time in history which, what's in it for me? Zero. People are getting killed because they're Talmidei Chacham. Asar Arugei Malchus. You become, what's in it for you? You get to be a martyr and get your skin scraped with rakes by the Romans. You know, what's in it for me? So this throws somebody whose whole life is about Shalol Lishma and Kavod, and it's so beautiful to be a Talmud Chacham, throws you a little bit into, like
Tailspin.
What?
Tailspin.
Yeah, a little bit of a
You
tailspin.
grow so much Shlit'a.
You can grow tremendously out of it. You ever see weeds grow faster than trees? So it was there. So Rabbi Akiva said, okay, I'll tell you what. You want to know why there's a tzaddik or Allah? You want to know why Hadrian is Matzliach? You want to know why there's a Asar Arugei Malchus? Let's go into the Pardes. Go into the Pardes, deepest examination possibly in history. This was before Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The deepest examination in history of tzaddik v'ralei. Moshe Rabbeinu struggled with this. Right. And for Rabbi Akiva it was good. Came out good. Nichnas b'shalom, yatsa b'shalom. For Elisha ben Avi, he became an apokars. V'ken Dazayin, the exact same thing that made Rabbi Akiva into a bigger tzaddik. Depends what you're watering. So this all came, it depends what you're watering. The Shaloi Lishma, the weed of Elisha ben Avuya, blossomed into a Rotzeach. And the Lishma of Rabbi Akiva blossomed into the most beautiful fruit in history. So you're the same water falling on a very similar looking seed, because who can tell? Even Rabbi Akiva couldn't tell. And this is growing Tov, and this is growing around. Why is this? Because Adam Harishon ingested this rock.
Akiva invited him into...
Yeah.
With the other two.
Ben Zoma Ben Azai. Which is not our discussion, but it's very interesting. You know, it's... like I was omed on this as a child, I'm sure you were too. You grow up around Holocaust survivors, and you people that are my age, you grow up around Holocaust survivors. Like, how is it that one comes out from this? Look, I'm sure two experiences are the same, but how is it that one comes out the tzaddik from the experience, the Skoleta Rebbe, and what comes out like, I'm angry at God, I'm angry at everybody, and it becomes almost like a Russia because of it. I'm not judging anybody, I'm just saying, like, how could it be, like, general terms, how could it be? The answer is, a lot of it, at least, depends not on what you went through or how you came out, a lot of it depends on how you went in. So Rabbi Akiva look at the diuk of the Lashon and Chazal. It doesn't say it was Yatsa B'Shalom for the Pardes. Nichnas B'Shalom v'Yatsa B'Shalom. Ben Azai was looking for, Chazal say, some type of a spiritual high. He was so elated by the experience of what Rabbi Akiva taught in his Pardes with Rosh HaChabura, he died. Ben Zoma was so intellectually compelled by this experience, V'nifka. And Chazal are Medayik already. They weren't old enough. That was why they were called Ben Zoma, Ben Azai. They weren't Musbachim. Elisha ben Avuya, he was a big guy. He was a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva. But he wasn't nichnas b'shalom. There was no shalom in him. So this is the Ra. This is the Ra that's there.
The example I was giving, it sounds like it's the chefza. Depends on the karka. Depending on the karka where you plant the seed of the chefza. If you take it a little bit to the next step, then Adam Rishon, his chefza, how could he be imperfect? It should be perfect. There's Baruch Hu made it.
Yeah, but until he did a Chet.
Till
because the Ra was there as an Asayim. The Ra was there.
Before he actually went.
So we didn't explain what the Ra was. The Nachash was Mechutz.
So he was that a perfect chefza?
He was a perfect chefza that had to walk around the Nachash. He had to climb over that hill. But he wasn't struggling. In other words, there was never an intention of a perfect life. There was a perfect life with a Nachash. Whatever that means. Maybe we'll learn. Now, just to go further, just one of the ramifications of ingesting the Ra in the Chet of the Eitz Hadas is an Elisha ben Avuya or a Shapsai Tzvi, as he says. Two casualties of the Chet of the Eitz Hadas. You know, we spoke about it on Pesach. There's so much discussion about should you learn Kabbalah? When is the right time to learn Kabbalah? The Shach says when you're 40. Interesting, the lashon of the Rabbah. Asur l'tayil b'pardes ad shemalei kreisei b'shasu poisky. Basar v'yayin, which is shasu poisky. So interesting, the mashal, the imagery. Asur l'tayil b'pardes. You're not allowed to learn Kabbalah until you're full with basar v'yayin. What was going on from the Pardes? Okay, so there. Rizal's Befarish Pardes means Kabbalah, Pshat, Remez, Drush, Soid. But Pardes means an orchard. Because Rabbi Akiva and Acher were B'tayil Pardes. What the Shulchan Aruch is saying there, is the lashon of the Rosh, I think. What the Shulchan Aruch is saying is that you got to watch this Arba Nichnasu Pardes. You got to watch what took place over there. Because what you see that it didn't affect everybody equally. But Rabbi Akiva had one reaction, Zoba had another, Benazai another, and Elisha ben Avuya a horrible reaction to the same medicine.
But Elisha ben Avuya was Malay Basaviyai.
Yeah.
So it's mashma, there was no issue for him.
You're not Malay Basar Yayin unless it's good stuff.
Who can
Unless it's good stuff.
Who can claim to be?
So you don't learn Kabbalah. You don't learn Kabbalah. That's exactly the message of the Shulchan Aruch.
Was Rabbi Akiva's shalom also that he walked in with also a blind spot for Acher? That was his optimism something that blinded him? Because we know he was also optimistic throughout his life, right?
Rabbi Akiva Hayim Masachik. I don't want to talk too much because I don't want Rabbi Akiva to come to me in a dream tonight. But let's put it your way. In his optimism, he made mistakes. He had a false Mashiach, and he made a mistake with Elisha ben Avuya. Doesn't take away from it the fact that he was the Gadol Adar, but he saw Toiv.
It's a Kavinu made a mistake.
All the Gedolim made a mistake with Shapsai Tzvi. It wasn't a big Chiddush. People make mistakes. That's all part of it. That's what we made the Moshe Rabbeinu made mistakes. I feel it's usher to say there's mistakes. So he says, let's go a little further here. So this is the pshat that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to lock the gate to the Eitz HaChaim, let's call it, in our case, for our wash purposes, the limud of Pardes. He had to lock that gate to Adam HaRishon because you can't walk into that with still some Ra in your system. Too dangerous. You can't walk into the Eitz HaChaim. You're going to nourish Ra and make Ra Chai Lo'elam. You're watering the weeds. That's what happened. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to close that gate. Until you ate from the Eitz Hadas, Gesundheit, eat the Eitz Chaim, it's healthy for you, it's good. But once you know you have a shemitz of Ra, which is real inside of you, you got to watch the stuff, the potions, that are nourishing, because they're going to nourish the good, true, and they're also going to nourish the bad.
It's quarantine.
You know, we were talking about a little bit like this, like you're not allowed to teach Torah to a Talmud Sheina Hagam. You know, anybody who's involved with Kiruv has to be worried about this, teaching Torah to a Talmud Sheina Hagam. Okay, so Rabbi David says, well, there's Bali Tshuva, they're all Tzadik Shenishba. Seder, that's the heter. If there, it seems to me, I'm saying, I know this is radical, but I'm allowed to say, because I taught Torah to hundreds of intermarried people. I'm not talking from an ivory tower here. I've been in these trenches. It seems to me that a distinction has to be made between Taka Tzadik Shenishba just didn't get a chance to learn, nobody taught him Nebuch, and a person who has some kind of a Shalol Lishma agenda. So if you have some type of a Shalol Lishma agenda, so now you're feeding something negative. It's a distinction that has to be made, and that's already what it says in Shulchan Aruch. You're not allowed to teach Torah the Talmud Sheina Hagam. So if there's nothing negative, it's just, like Nebuch didn't get a chance to learn, wasn't exposed to it. Expose Hamor Shabai Achziroi Lamutav. Yesh Davar Kazeh.
You're not worrying the bad. You're not worrying the bad.
Right, but if there's something particularly negative, and by the way, this is Tosfos, if it's Lekanter, he's there because he wants to learn Lekanter. Okay, so it's so there's an Indian of Dama Lahashiv Lapakars, but that's not teaching them Torah. It's Dama Lahashiv Lapakars. There's answers that can be given, and there's polemics, and there's debates, and there's debate material, but it's not teaching Torah. So because Torah is the Eitz Chaim, and to put the Eitz Chaim, you got to be careful what you're nourishing there. You have to be careful what you're nourishing. It's a tough one. Another, like being a Gabbai Tzedakah, it's a tough one or should we be teaching Torah to everybody? Should we be going into Catholic churches and teaching Torah? Like a mitzad echad, I'm a book publisher. Almost every person who comes to me and says, I want to write a book, says, the Goyim will love this. As it seems to be like standard. It's a pirush on the Ksaises, a translation of the Ksaises pirush on the Rashba, Grubba, the Goyim will love this. They will love it. I don't know. And it's not so pashut to reach these Goyim, and it's not like there's a group of 50 Goyim out there that love anything Jewish. We're talking about a million brands and a million. But you got to ask yourself. But I've been asked to speak for these groups. You have to ask yourself, we're not talking about information. Making peace, even debating, which the Ramban did, or explaining a position. We're not talking about that. We're talking about teaching Torah. They love it. Teach Torah like this, like let's say this year. They love it. Is it right? So, totally, what's going on over there? I spent on and off 25 years teaching what I thought was like the most sincere Christian that I've ever met, and he's and Amok and started Buffalo, and he kept up with me, and I used to sell Muhammad's on Pesach, and I was like a real and comes a year ago, he writes a book all about Jesus, and he's quoting me throughout. I have the book in my office called The Red Heifer. What's the Gewalt? What did I do? it's like a mistake of the lifetime. There's a shorish ra there, and this is possibly, if I may say so myself, the most sophisticated book on Christianity out there. I think I outdid the Pope, because to take the concepts that we discussed. And okay, all of a sudden it all makes sense. The second coming makes sense. Everything makes sense.
You wrote your name? You wrote your name?
Yeah, throughout. Throughout, I am the most quoted person in that book. With stories, I have a whole rep in that book, but it's all coming to Yeshua.
Is it a hamletzer?
It's just an unbelievable awakening.
What was that?
To do what?
To teach him.
I thought it was sincere. I don't know.
That he was going to be a convert.
I never understood, like, why didn't he convert? Why aren't you converting? Like, I'm teaching you this stuff. You like it. You believe it. He's a very deep person. He was a person every once in a while. He used to give me $1,000 for tzedakah. So again, tzedakah chesed b'lumim chatos. I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying, I'm just telling you my experience. No, nishta zoy pashut, to give the key to the Eitz Chaim to anybody who wants it, no matter what it seems. So this is the Shapsai Tzvi, this is Acher, and it's probably Yeshu himself. Probably Yeshu himself, the same who had access to phenomenal, much more than I had to offer, phenomenal streams of wisdom, and from the biggest Chachamim in history, and he had access to that. So I don't know why he doesn't bring him as the key example. Probably afraid, but
should write a book called The Golden Calf and show how he misquoted you all the way through.
Instead of the Red Heifer, a Pirush on the Red Heifer. Pirush equals
Very expensive.
I'll show you the book. I believe.
Rabbi Moshe has a tshuva about letting conservatives use the mikveh, where they didn't contribute. I guess that was good. So he says they shouldn't have a unika. We shouldn't give them a unika. That's the unika for this job. Same as like that.
It's so interesting you mentioning this, because I was talking just yesterday. I was talking to my son as a rabbi in Virginia, in Norfolk, Virginia. So there's an issue whether they should let goyim who think they're Jews use the mikveh or not. So there's a lot of halachic issues, because Taival and Lidasim, Taival Yusim, Gemara Yevamis. It's a very complicated Tosfos halachically, whether that becomes like a shtickle gerus, which is not good, then you don't get a real gerus. But he told me, I think he spoke to he spoke to Nata Greenblatt, who's the Talmud of Moshe in Memphis. He's an international rabbi. So he said from Moshe, he says that it's a bad thing because what you're doing is you're nourishing Ra.
Feeding the bed.
Feeding the dead. You're watering the weeds. So the name of the shir is Watering the Weeds. Okay, let's go a little further. A fascinating couple of sentences we have. V'zehu, everything we're talking about. Was everybody here at the Pirkei Avos here? So watch how this, like Hashgacha Pratis, I love when this happens, how everything comes together. No connection here with other Pirkei Avos. V'zehu histalkus hashchina mitachtoinim. This is why the Shechina no longer dwells on the earth. Shahaya yidei Chet Adam Harishon. This is what happened when Adam Harishon did his Chet. Let's just read the words and then we'll explain. The Shechina, which was permeating the world, now left the world, went up a step. Shechina's here instead of here. Shahaya yidei Chet Adam Harishon. Listen to this. Ad sheba Moshe Rabbeinu. Until Moshe Rabbeinu came along, Olav Shalom, v'hayrida la'aretz, b'mishkan. Until Moshe Rabbeinu came and brought the Shechina back, come on back, to Klal Yisrael, come back to the world. How did he do it? With the Mishkan. Shenitztava achar Yom Kippurim, shezachu l'kapara v'tikun achet. You thought, Rabbi Yitzchak, that Klal Yisrael did a Chet with the Egel Hazav, and then Moshe Rabbeinu had to go back onto Har Sinai and beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu for forgiveness. And on the 10th day of Tishrei, Hashem said, B'seder salachti kidvarecha, I'm forgiving you for what? The Egel Hazav, no. I'll forgive you now for the Chet of Adam HaRishon. You were just on Yom Kippur masaking the Chet of Adam HaRishon. What happened to Egel Hazav? Well, we're on a different subject.
That's why
the Egel Hazav was the Chet of Adam HaRishon. They just did it again. That's why before they did the Chet of Adam HaRishon of the Egel Hazav, before they did the Chet, they're just standing at Har Sinai. Posca zu Amasa. The Chet of Adam HaRishon had ended. The Zuama had ended. They were at Har Sinai. They had the Shechina. Everything was perfect. Everything was beautiful. They were back in Gan Eden, standing at Har Sinai, listening to Hashem, Anochi Hashem Alekecha, feeling not Moshe Rabbeinu not having to eat, not having to drink, no worries of food, no worries of clothes, no worries of anything. They were in Gan Eden. Until they built the Egel Hazav, they did again, repeated the Chet of the Yetzer Hara. You're in Gan Eden, what are you eating the apple for? The same reason Klal Yisrael built an Egel Hazav. Why? We want to make a God. We don't want it from here. We want to do it. Nasa lanu Elohim. The same thing as Dar HaPalaga. You could have built the Beis HaMikdash, Chazal say, but Nasa lanu Shei. It was all the same thing. So when it happened is that you take all the big chatoim, or let's put it even better, all the great chances in history for it to be masaking the Chet of Adam HaRishon, the Mabul, Noach before the Mabul itself, the Dar HaPalaga, which came right at the same parsha, the Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, except for the Chet of Yosef, the Chet of all of these different chances of history. Finally, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to stand and beg HaKadosh Baruch Hu after the Egel Hazav to Salachti Kidvarecha.
And he gave us the Eitz HaChaim, he gave us the Torah.
And he gave us the Eitz HaChaim, but not the same Eitz HaChaim. It's not the Luchos Rishonos, it's the Luchos Shniyos. That's a different process. I'll give it to you, Salachti Kidvarecha, but now you're going to have to do the work because you still ate from the Eitz Hadas, so. You can't go back. You still ate from the Eitz Hadas.
Is it for tikkun?
The tikkun was the tikkun was luchos shniyos, which are different than the madrega of the luchos rishonos of the
It's to get to the original one.
Oh, which is a process of Torah Shabbat, Torah Shabbat Peh. For now, okay, you gave me luchos shniyos. Now I need the Hillel and Shammai and Abaye and Rav and Rapapa to be able to come to the tikkun, to be able. But what Moshe Rabbeinu pulled off for us, which before in Chazal that the luchos rishonos were in the bechina of Torah Shabbat and the luchos shniyos were in the bechina of Torah Shabbat Peh. What does it mean? What's meant to us? It means that Torah Shabbat Peh is our work. Struggle, work, arguing, figuring it out, making enemies, politics. It's all about Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai. Should we marry them? Should we marry them? It's all. That's luchos shniyos. Luchos shniyos is a big process, but it's a process. At least we have a derech. A derech what? Eitz Chaim. Eitz Chaim hilam achazik.
That's what we asked for, so to speak. Right?
You asked for it. You got it. It's a sort of a combination. So it's interesting. Like you're getting to Adam HaRishon Kaidem Achet, but it's Adam HaRishon Acher Achet. Hence, the Luchos Rishonos and Luchos Shiver Luchos and Luchos Menachem B'Dar and Echad. It became one program. So this is what we have to learn next time. Tchilas Luchos Rishonos, the next paragraph. But the point is, Naspik Lahayom, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Chiddush Nifla, and not such a Chiddush when you think about it. That Moshe Rabbeinu, when Hashem said to him, Salachti Kidvarecha, he wasn't talking about the Egel Hazav, he was talking about the Eitz Hadas. Haflo v'vel. Because of Altzein Chet.
So that Mila you don't have by Matan Torah, by Har Sinai.
The first, when?
By Matan Torah, the first, before
you don't have that mile.
You don't have that Mila.
There was no Chet. There was Pascha Zumas. You see the mats of Sof Kol Sof.
is mitar the Chet, but it's not orchid the Shemetz?
Right, I don't know. But I know
Hasan and we said that means that there's
they became, in other words, the whole, let's look just, I don't know, because you're going too deep for me, but let's just say what we do know.
Right.
What we do know is that the cycle of Gan Eden was repeated. Here we are back in Adam Harishon Kodem Chet, standing at Har Sinai, hearing Anochi Hashem Elokecha out loud, listening to HaKadosh Baruch Hu out. Like that's not a situation we're in. That's a situation they were in. Then came, look at the parallels. Chet Tzadas, Chet Azov. Boom. The Pascha Zumasam ended. Be'it Shel Nachash, says the Gemara, by the eights of the Nachash. Now you have Moshe Rabbeinu. Here's the difference. Now you have Moshe Rabbeinu saying, we got to get back in. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, well, let's start from the beginning. Like this did not work. Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Mitzrayim, it didn't work. They're still holding the same place.
Reboot.
Reboot. Let's start from the beginning. Avar loy Moshe, Kisei shel sholish regolim lo yochel iskayim. Kisei shel regol achas yochel iskayim. You want to start the whole thing from me? It's not like you can't reboot. No, we'll go back. We'll be masakim. We'll do it. That's a big process. Amar Hashem. Luchos Shniyos, that's Torah Shabbat Peh, that's Shas. That's a tough one. That's a lot of struggle. That's a David HaMelech and a lot of struggle. You ever think about this like this Moshe, David. Lanias Daiti, two Mashiachs. What do I mean by Mashiach? He that's going to be Masakin the Chet of Eitz Hadas. That's what Mashiach is. So to bring the Shechina back, L'Tachtzayim. Moshe, David. Moshe, pure. We don't have any. We don't hear about spiritual struggles of Moshe, other than Armai the Shaliach. We don't hear about him, about Ma'asav Bashevas and about Shaul HaMelech, and we don't hear about that. Moshe Rabbeinu was like the pure, pristine, clean tzaddik.
Hasan Dami.
Okay. David HaMelech was like. Also, what do we know about Moshe Rabbeinu already? You know the whole.
After Shabbos alone.
Okay, but with everything, I mean, just here's my Shabbos perspective. Like the Sefer Bereshis took approximately 2,000 years to happen. From Chazak, Unis Chazek, from Shmos Aleph, which was basically the birth of Moshe, until the end of Devarim, which was the death of Moshe. So Shmos, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim, how long did that take? 120 years. And of those 120 years, because Moshe Rabbeinu lived under, of those 120 years, how much do we know about?
40.
3.
Yeah, 3.
3. We don't know anything about Moshe Rabbeinu except that he was born.
Growing up.
And we don't know anything about 80 till he was 80 years old. We don't know anything about Moshe Rabbeinu, except for maybe Midrashim that he was the king of Ethiopia. But in the Chumash, we don't know anything about Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't know anything about the 40 years in the Midbar, except for the first 2 years and a little bit at the end. That's all. The whole 38 years in the Midbar, we know nothing what was going on there. You think you know because you think there's a big Chumash. We don't know. Everything that happened in all that Chumash and Shmos and Parshas Matos Masai, all of the stories that you have, Korach and Bilam and everything that you have, is all talking about either the first 2 years in the Midbar, basically 18 months, I think, and the last 6 months. So you're talking about 2, maybe 3 years, let's say. 3 years that we know. So what do we know? How do, like welcome to Moshe Rabbeinu who changed the world. What do we know about Moshe Rabbeinu? We know 3 out of 3,000. The Torah, he died in 2488. So we're talking about almost 3,000 years. 3 of those years to our idea is Moshe Rabbeinu. Everything we do is based on Moshe Rabbeinu. He was pristine, though. What we did, there's nothing to say. He was completely pristine. He was pure. He was holy. But he was the Luchos Rishonos. David HaMelech was a Luchos Shniyos. David HaMelech represented the Mashiach of Golus, if you will. Down to earth, struggling, Nisyonos, Yetzirah, Libi, Cholol, Bekirbi, all the struggles, in If it would have been just Moshe Rabbeinu, there wouldn't have been a Reb Nachman Bresler. Like all of that, that's talking like to the generation, it's all because of it's down to earth and it's struggling and it talks about our struggle, all those things, all those stories. So like there's something happened there with the Egel Hazav. All of this, it's not a bad thing, it's just a different thing. All of this is the Chet of Adam Arisha. So Moshe Rabbeinu was the Mashiach, but he wasn't the complete Mashiach. I pointed out on Shabbos, Shlach no biyad tishlach. Let me go to Teretz Yisrael, finish the deal. No. Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a process here. You got a long time. A lot of work. It says Reb Tzadok, the Yom Kippur, shezachu lekapar v'tikun achet. Yom Kippur, zalachti ki dvarecha, and presumably every Yom Kippur that we do, there's a personal tikkun of that chet. Just do one more sentence here. The Klal Yisrael at that point, the ones that built the Egel Hazav, the ones that came out of Mitzrayim, the ones that stood at Har Sinai, was a Dor Deya. What's that? What is a Dor Deya?
Dardaim.
Huh?
Dardaim.
Dardaim. What's a Dor Deya? What was Hodeya about us? We were slaves. Dor Deya. Beside Hadas, Deya means Das. It means that in that generation we possessed Das. Das. What's Das? Shehu ayichud agomer demayach v'leiv. Well, I know Das is? Das is when you're not going by your intellect and you're not going by your heart, but you have a perfect combination and synthesis between Moach v'leiv. That's Das. Or in Chabadi, Loshin, Chachma, Bina equals Das. Chesed, Vura equals Tiferes. Tiferes equals Das in the second level of spheres. Das. So they were a Dor Deya beside Hadas, Shehu ayichud agomer de Moach v'leiv. Sheheim chelkei hanefesh de Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom. And this was what Moshe Rabbeinu himself was, because the tzaddik in the gadol is only as, they say, a shul gets the rabbi they deserve. Klal Yisrael gets the leader they deserve. So when you had a Menashe Rasha being the Melech of Klal Yisrael, that's because, not because Menashe was the Rasha, it was because Klal Yisrael were Rishayim. When you had a Moshe Rabbeinu, it's because they were a Dor Deya. Like Gewalt, what's a Dor Deya? I got to even. we were a Dor Deya, we said, and we were a perfect synthesis of our minds and our hearts.
He was a mirror,
and he was the reflection of that.
It's also
Shehu hakoilulun kenoida. The tzaddik of the door, tzaddik yesod olam. The tzaddik of the door can only be what could only go into midas hayesod is only what's on top of it. It's the only thing that can go into it. So we need to be mavar. I just wanted to throw that out there because that's the next step in our thinking. Who was Moshe? What was Moshe? Who was the door? That's what we have to look at. Which, as I say, is just to me so beautiful that it dovetails with what we're learning on Shabbos also. So it's all one sugya here. The Shemayim comes together. Who was Moshe? Well, who was the door? And Moshe Rabbeinu was the one, Mefurish, Kidvareinu, who's Masak in the Chet of Adam Arishan. Okay.